Today's date is March 31st, 1986. On the ramp at Mexico City's Benito Juarez International Airport is Mexicana Flight 940, a scheduled international departure to Los Angeles, California, with en route stops at Puerto Vallarta and Mazatlan. Formed in the 1920s, Mexicana is North America's oldest airline and the world's fourth oldest airline to operate continuously under the same name, following after KLM from the Netherlands, Aviation from Colombia, and Australia's Qantas. The aircraft itself is a 5-year-old Boeing 727-200, listed on the Mexican register as X-Ray Alpha Mike Echo Mike, and bearing the name Veracruz in honour of the coastal state of the same name. A stretched version of the original 100 series model, the 200 series, has been extended to approximately 153 feet, or just under 47 metres in length, with the wingspan and height remaining common between both. The original 200s shared the same maximum gross weight as the 100 series. However, as the aircraft evolved, a series of higher gross weights and more powerful engines were introduced, along with other improvements. Having first flown on July 27, 1967, the 200's additional length generally facilitated greater seating capacities, and in the case of Mexicana 940 today, the crew complement of 8 will be joined by 159 passengers of 5 different nationalities. In all, during the 1980s, Mexicana will operate one of the largest fleet of 727s anywhere in the world, with 18 of the original 100 series machines and 51 of the later 200 series models. The most senior member of 940's crew and in command of this morning's flight will be Captain Carlos Guadamara Sistos, age 36, an experienced pilot with over 15,000 hours of flying experience. He will be joined on the flight deck by First Officer Felipe Piaget Roer and Flight Engineer Angel Carlos Peñasco Espinosa. What no one will know is that within a very short period of time, Mexicana 940 will enter the aviation history books, for all the wrong reasons. Shortly after takeoff, the aircraft will crash into El Carbón, a peak of just under 8,000 feet above sea level in the Sierra Madre Occidental mountain range northwest of Mexico City, killing everyone on board. With 167 deaths, the crash of Flight 940 will not only be the deadliest aviation disaster to occur on Mexican soil, but also the deadliest accident ever to involve the Boeing 727 type. But it's the technical cause behind the crash which makes this accident unique and which will ultimately have a direct impact on improving future flight safety standards. However, aside from the relevant technical aspects of this story, what makes 940 different is also the hidden human story behind one particular individual on board, Graciela Flores, wife of Captain Guadamara. She will be travelling with her husband and their 2 young children, fulfilling a promise made previously to take them both to see the attractions of Disneyland while the crew were on layover in Los Angeles. In the meantime, although pushback and taxi will be largely uneventful, what will subsequently grab the attention of the investigation team will be the comments between both pilots regarding the aircraft's tendency to pull to the left, and their surprise at the aircraft's slower than expected acceleration on the takeoff roll, despite the correct power having been set. An explanation of such performance anomalies can be difficult to determine. Potentially the aircraft may be suffering from a steering misalignment, seriously worn tyres, or potentially a dragging brake unit, to mention some of the more obvious and common causes. Any or all of which will be explored as part of the subsequent investigation. However, as for the crew themselves, despite it being a topic of discussion pre-departure, the issue will obviously cause them no great concern, with Mexicana 940 accepting a takeoff clearance, which will finally see the aircraft airborne at 8:50 local. As the 727 climbs into the clear skies above Mexico City, it will turn out to the west, setting course for Puerto Vallarta on the Pacific coastline, where it expects to land in just over 1 hour's time. But 1 hour, or 60 minutes, is time 940 doesn't have. As the flight climbs through 26,000 feet, a mere 15 minutes after departure, without warning, all hell will break loose, as a violent explosion rips through the aircraft's fuselage.
Mexico Mexicana 940 requesting lower.
Mexicana 940, go ahead.
Mexicana 940. We're requesting a lower level. Nina 40 requesting an immediate return to Mexico City.
Mexicana 940, you're authorized to descend to flight level 200. Turn right, direct to the Mexico VOR.
Mexicana 940. Turn right direct to the Mexico VOR.
Taking stock of the situation as best he can, Captain Guadalmara will immediately declare an emergency and request the descent and return to Benito Juarez International Airport in anticipation of an emergency landing. Unbeknownst to the airport authorities, while they prepare the airport for 940's immediate return, out to the west, the crew of Mexicana 940 will have lost control of the jet as it plunges towards the Sierra Madre mountain range near the town of Maravatio in the state of Michoacan. Eyewitnesses will report seeing the 727 break in two as it descends in flames and will help relay the location of the crash site to authorities, resulting in mobilization of the local police and the Mexican army. What will quickly become clear, however, is that there will be no survivors. Initially, two Middle Eastern terrorist groups will claim responsibility, along with the bombing of TWA Flight 840, which will occur just 2 days later. An anonymous letter signed by the groups concerned will claim that a suicide mission has sabotaged the plane in retaliation against the United States administration, as this will be the aircraft's final destination. Investigators, though, will quickly eliminate any suggestion of foul play and dismiss the cause of the accident as being one of sabotage. What they do uncover, however, is concerning and has implications not only for the global 727 fleet, but for large transport aircraft the world over. Teams from the United States National Transportation Safety Board and Mexican aeronautical authorities will ultimately establish that the cause of the accident will be due to a tyre on the left-hand main landing gear having been filled with compressed air rather than nitrogen. This in isolation isn't sufficient enough to bring down a modern jet airliner, but cognizant of the pilot's earlier comments on the CVO recording, they will be able to identify evidence of overheating on some tyre remnants and link this to a malfunctioning brake unit on that side of the aircraft. The reason this is significant is that when tyres filled with compressed air are significantly heated, in this instance by way of the faulty brake unit fitted to the wheel on the left-hand gear assembly, a chemical reaction can occur whereby flammable vapours are generated internally within the tyre cavity. Under a given set of circumstances, a combination of pressure and heat may well result in the vapours reaching their temperature of auto-ignition, causing the tyre to fail explosively. And in the case of Mexicana 940, this is exactly what happened. Yet again, in isolation, this may not have been sufficient to bring down the aircraft, but it was believed that what did finally cripple the 727 and resulted in the crew losing control of the jet was the damage inflicted by the exploding tyre, given its location at the time inside the left wheel well. This is a cavity within the fuselage which houses the gear when retracted, but by design also accommodates the routing of much of the aircraft's hydraulic and fuel plumbing. Furthermore, the roof of the wheel well, forming the floor of the passenger cabin, will also house much of the aircraft's electrical and flight control surface cabling. Indeed, were the roof of the wheel well itself to be compromised by any explosion within, the integrity of the passenger cabin and the ability to maintain cabin pressurization may well become an issue in itself. Once again, investigators believed that all of these factors, to one degree or another, played a part in the aircraft's demise. As the facts behind Mexicana 940 became known, less than a year after the accident, the US FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, released Airworthiness Directive, or AD, number 870809, applicable to most large aircraft in service at the time. The function of an AD is to mandate design or procedural changes which the relevant authority believes are of critical safety nature, with compliance being required within a strictly defined period of time. In its preamble, the FAA stated that its aim was to eliminate the possibility of a chemical reaction between atmospheric oxygen and volatile gases from the tyre inner lining, which may under certain circumstances give rise to an explosive tyre failure. Therefore, it instructed operators to accomplish the following unless such action had already been accomplished by the specific operator. Within 180 days of the AD's effective date, each must ensure that all aircraft tyres mounted on braked wheels contain no more than 5% oxygen. With regard regulation into the future, the AD also stated, for an airplane with a maximum certified takeoff weight of more than 75,000 pounds, the equivalent of 34,000 kilos, tyres mounted on braked wheels must be inflated with dry nitrogen or other gases shown to be inert, so that the gas mixture in the tyre will not contain oxygen in excess of 5% by volume, unless it can be shown that the tyre liner material will not produce a volatile gas when heated, or that means are provided to prevent tyre temperatures from reaching unsafe levels. Even during the 80s, it was more practical to use high-pressure nitrogen with a very good regulator to service tyres, since most common air compressors didn't reach high enough pressures to do the job adequately, although this obviously hadn't deterred Mexicana maintenance personnel from improvising an effective workaround. With regard to the story of Graciela Flores, she had in the past been a flight attendant with the airline. Indeed, on the night of September 21st, 1969, nearly 17 years beforehand, she had been one of the operating crew on Mexicana Flight 801 from Chicago, which landed short of Mexico City's runway 23 left, the accident resulting in the deaths of 5 of her crew colleagues and 22 passengers. Escaping from the wreckage, she had walked the short distance into the airport environment in order to raise the alarm and get help. Although physically uninjured, she was to suffer psychologically, and as a result ultimately left her job as a flight attendant. However, this was not to be the end of her involvement with Mexicana Airlines. Sometime later, she had met and subsequently married Carlos Alberto Guatemala Sistos, captain of the ill-fated flight. With her decision to accompany him that morning, the most ironic of chapters was unwittingly closed, with her having survived one previous accident only to be taken by another. Such is the legacy of Mexicana Flight 940, the flight which changed maintenance practices and ultimately improved aviation flight safety for all future travellers.